You know, Friday, a lot of people were disappointed there. We saw the market fall quite a bit, but actually they paired their gains by the end of the day Friday, and today they more or less reversed them. So all of that fear that we had last week about whether or not they'd be able to get their austerity plan through, we now know that they have. It now gets kicked over to the finance ministers in Europe. And
so, Christine, you spend all day making and deciding what goes on the homepage, and there are pictures of Greece burning that you look through, and there are sort of firebombs going off as people throw things at the parliament.
Right, and today the cleanup of that whole scene.
And
yes,
today the cleanup of that whole scene. So you see that, and then you hear what Jonathan's saying about the market, and people are relieved. Do you see a disconnect?
Sure, and a disconnect also with what Brussels has to do, and the bailout package coming forward, and Germany saying, well, let's just check and see, maybe this isn't enough.
Right.
This story is far from over.
Right.
It's not really great news yet. When will things be really sewn up? I don't know.
Right, and that's good news because Simon's preparing to celebrate the anniversary of Greece.
3 years of me talking about
That's
it.
right. So we don't want to spoil the party before that.
Not quite yet.
But I mean, but the whole point is this is an ongoing story, and we keep being told it's over, it's over, it's over, it's over, and it isn't.
Right. Well, I think investors have now more or less factored in this idea that over is a very relative term. It's over enough
Good for
the
today,
time being.
something to trade on. Yeah.
That's right, and it's something to trade on, and this is not going to go away. But
and included in the recap of the markets today is Apple up 1% today.
Yeah, and over $500. That's the key.
Yeah.
It ended at about 502. Maybe it's bouncing around a little bit, 502.60 or something like that. But what a story there! I mean, Apple is up 38% since Thanksgiving.
And there it is, and still doing good in the aftermarket as well, up less than 1/10%, but still up. Now, the key here is that Apple, it's not just Apple, it is actually just a massive portion of the NASDAQ as well. Am I right?
And the S&P 500.
And the S&P. So what Apple does is really, is this the tail wagging the dog a little bit perhaps?
There is a little bit of that going on, and we're working on a story here, and we're just talking about how there are a lot of strategists, a lot of people on Wall Street, in the same way that they had to split off Japan from the rest of Asia because it was skewing things too much, and you have this thing called Asia ex Japan. You see a lot of people doing the same with financials here after the financial crisis. You have the S&P 500 sort of ex-financials. Now you're starting to see ex-Apple come up.
Technology ex-Apple.
Or S&P 500 ex-Apple.
Wow,
Interesting.
That's interesting. And then, of course, we got all this other stuff about budgets and more taxes coming in through the president's budget. That doesn't augur well for the economy as well, does it?
But the budget story, I think, is so different. It really doesn't have an impact on the markets because it's such a long step between any of it being enacted that I think that's
theatre, perhaps.
Well, we'll talk to Jerry Seib soon. Maybe he can answer that question. But I don't think the markets really played too much into that today.
Not on a day-to-day basis, but of course, you know, in the longer term, I think people can look over at Europe and they can see the fiscal troubles that they have over there, and they can say, look, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow,
but U.S. is
one
turning
day,
around, and it's a little bit stronger here.
That's
so
right.
yes, in that way, I think economy overall in the U.S. is having a hand.